My name is Henrietta Henri Malone. I'm 71, and I once believed the worst thing a mother could hear at her son's wedding was, "Speak now, or forever hold your peace." Turns out, the real heartbreak came months later, when the same son signed papers that locked me behind the lavender walls of Magnolia Pines Senior Residence. Before I unlace that memory, drop a note in the comments. What time is it on your clock? And which city's sky stretches over you? Your answers flicker like porch lights, reminding me I'm not telling this story to the dark. Isaiah, my only boy, married Lillian Grace Davenport on a honey gold afternoon last May. Spanish moss hung from Savannah oaks like lace veils, and charter buses ferried guests to the riverfront ballroom where a 6-tier cake sparkled with edible diamonds. I wore dove gray silk, clutched a bouquet of hydrangeas, and thanked God my late husband's life insurance policy had paid for Isaiah's medical school and apparently this fairy tale reception. I noticed small oddities that day but brushed them aside. Lillian called the wedding planner Mom more often than she addressed me. Isaiah's best man hinted at a fresh start for the newlyweds, then toasted to unburdened tomorrows. I assumed they meant student loan freedom. I didn't suspect my tomorrow would be signed away. 2 weeks after the honeymoon, they moved home, just until residency placements finalize. At first, the house buzzed with casseroles, thank you cards, and laughter. Then came mail I never saw, letters redirected to their new P.O. box. Isaiah insisted it was for efficiency. Lillian scheduled doctor checkups I didn't need, managed my prescriptions without asking, and insisted on driving me to church for safety. Their stewardship felt suffocating, but they sang it in such sweet harmony I doubted my own ears. One humid July morning, a cheerful nurse named Amber knocked on my door. "Ms. Malone, ready for your tour?" she chirped. I frowned. Tour of what? Amber glanced at Isaiah's signature on her clipboard. "Magnolia Pines, your new home. Paperwork's all set." Panic surged, but Isaiah appeared in the hallway, eyes soft yet steely. "Mom, listen, the house is too big, the stairs dangerous. Magnolia has on-call nurses, game nights, a koi pond." Lillian clasped my hand, flashing sympathetic dimples. "And we'll visit every Sunday, promise." I protested, but they had rehearsed answers. "You'll make friends. It's temporary until we finish residency." And when words failed, they wielded guilt. "You always said you didn't want to be a burden." Burden. The syllable bruised more than any fall I'd taken on the staircase they claimed to fear. By sunset, boxes labeled Henrietta Misk filled a U-Haul. My wedding album vanished into Lillian's SUV. Isaiah assured me he'd digitize everything. The hydrangea garden Franklin planted for our 30th anniversary promised weekly upkeep once they hired landscapers. Magnolia Pines greeted me with potpourri and plastic smiles. Staff helped arrange my room, a single window facing the parking lot. As Amber left, she handed me a shiny brochure. On the back in faint ink, I spotted a signature line labeled "Responsible Financial Guarantor." Lillian's looping cursive filled the blank above my name. I traced the ink, heart stuttering. Why was my name under assets transferred? Why was my house listed with a market value checkmark? I demanded a phone. The nurse dialed Isaiah. He answered with forced warmth. "Mom, adjust first. We'll discuss details next visit." Call ended. The nurse's pity felt like cold soup. Night swallowed Magnolia Pines. Hallway lights clicked off one by one, leaving a hush so thick it pressed on my sternum. I lay awake, replaying every moment Isaiah and Lillian had coordinated without me. Bank visits, notarized forms, that sudden push to simplify. Somewhere in that timeline, my deed had changed hands. But the daughter of Franklin Malone does not stay conquered. At 3 a.m., I slipped from bed, grabbed a pen, and wrote the first entry in a spiral notebook labeled Reclamation Plan. Step 1. Learn elder law statutes. Step 2. Retrieve my banking login. Step 3. Expose whatever power of attorney Isaiah and Lillian had forged. Step 4. Walk out of Magnolia under my own name with my own keys. If you think a 71-year-old can't reverse a con, keep listening. Walls that hold frail bodies can't cage a determined mind, and paper chains tear easier than suns imagine. Sleep never claimed me, so I greeted dawn with purposeful calm. While other residents shuffled toward oatmeal and morning pills, I perched at a corner table in Magnolia's sunroom, notebook open, bifocals polished. Step 1. Understand the trap. I needed the documents Isaiah and Lillian had filed. Magnolia's front desk kept a copy of every admission packet. Hippoa be praised. I approached Miss Clarice, the receptionist, who wore a brooch shaped like a teacup. "Sweetheart," I said, voice quavering just enough. "My doctor wants to double-check my file. Could I get a photocopy? I'll return it in an hour." Sympathy bloomed. She handed me the folder and pointed to the resident copier. I thanked her, heart hammering like choir tambourines. Inside the folder sat a 5-page durable power of attorney, effective immediately, signed by me, witnessed by 2 names I didn't recognize. My signature was shaky, serpent-curved, nothing like the block letter steadiness my arthritis hadn't yet stolen. A notary seal glared from the margin, Miss Clarice's own. Betrayal widened. Isaiah must have slipped forged papers into a stack I'd initial here during estate planning months earlier. The POA granted them authority over all real and liquid assets, including sale, mortgage, or gifting of primary residence. I copied every page, slipped originals back, and returned the folder with a smile. Step 1, complete. Step 2, regain digital access. My accounts had 2-factor authentication tied to my cell number, but Magnolia required residents to surrender phones at night. After lunch, I visited the activities director, Marvin, a lanky retiree who adored technology, and volunteered to teach an afternoon crochet class. "We'll need yarn," I suggested. "Could I order supplies online? Faster delivery than catalogs." Marvin beamed at the initiative and lent me his office Chromebook. He left me alone to shop. I opened my bank's portal. Password rejected. Reset prompt appeared. Verification code sent to backup email. Backup email? I'd never set one. Lillian had. Locked door, but not deadbolt. I pivoted, opened Gmail, created a new address, and drafted an email to Isaiah. "Dear son, Magnolia's Wi-Fi blocks my banking app. Please send a printed monthly statement. Love, Mom." Bait. Cast. If he thought I was blind, he'd swim closer. Meanwhile, I Googled Georgia Elder Abuse Legal Hotline. Number noted. Step 3, required allies. Magnolia's halls were lined with forgotten expertise. A retired judge with Parkinson's, a former tax auditor who still did Sudoku and pen, and, most useful, Bertie Shaw, 82, once Savannah's fiercest real estate broker. Bertie rolled up during bingo, oxygen cannula snaking behind rhinestone glasses. I whispered my situation. Her eyes sparked like struck flint. "Baby, they doodled on the wrong deed," she rasped. She explained that a forged POA crumbles if the principal proves incapacity was fabricated. You walk, you talk, you crochet. That's no incapacity. Bertie still had contacts at county records. She'd make a call. Evening brought Magnolia's trivia hour. I feigned fatigue and returned to my room. The hallway TV showed local news, slow day except a blurb about Riverside Medical inaugurating new residents. Isaiah's photo flashed, white coat, triumphant smile. I paused. He'd betrayed me, yes, But I still love the boy who once repaired my garden hose with duct tape hearts. Vengeance must never become cruelty. Justice would be enough. Back inside, the landline rang. Lillian's syrupy tone filled my ear. "Checking on you, Henri, settling in." I pictured her scrolling Zillow, listing my hydrangea garden. "Magnolia is lovely," I said sweetly. "But could you bring my mahogany jewelry box? The nurses say familiar items soothe transition." A beat of hesitation. "Of course," she chirped. Familiar items indeed, the original deed, and my will rested beneath its velvet tray. After she hung up, I jotted step 4. Retrieve jewelry box, photograph deed, secure originals in independent deposit box. Beneath that, step 5 formed in bold strokes. Press charges if necessary. A soft knock sounded. Amber, the cheerful nurse, presented evening meds. I swallowed but asked, "Do you enjoy your work?" She smiled, then sighed. "Mostly. Some families dump relatives without a backward glance." Her honesty felt like a door cracked open. I lowered my voice. "What if a family signs papers against the resident's will?" She glanced down the corridor, then whispered, "Happens more than you think. If you need out, get a lawyer and call Adult Protective Services. They take elder financial abuse seriously." She slipped a brochure into my palm, winked, and wheeled away. I unfolded it. Georgia APS Hotline 1-866-55-AGING. Step 6 underlined itself. Lights dimmed across Magnolia. Residents snored, TVs droned reruns, and somewhere a clock chimed 9. I stood at my window, the parking lot view harsh under fluorescence. Yet beyond the chain-link fence shimmered downtown skyline, reminding me freedom wasn't distance, but direction. Tomorrow Bertie would call her county friend, Lillian would deliver my jewelry box, and Isaiah would learn that mothers who plant gardens also know how to pull weeds. And if you listen closely, you might hear the faint rip of paper chains already tearing. I woke to the rattle of a meal cart and the scent of oversteamed eggs, but my mind was sharper than any silver service Magnolia Pines could offer. Today was retrieval day. The mahogany jewelry box, my Trojan horse, was on its way, and with it, the paper trail Isaiah and Lillian hoped I'd never see again. By 9 o'clock, Bertie Shaw rolled into the sunroom, oxygen tank humming. She flashed a grin worthy of her real estate glory years and slipped a sealed envelope into my knitting bag. "County clerk's certified copy," she whispered. "Your deed transfer is stamped, but missing 2 witness signatures. That's voidable, honey." I squeezed her hand, gratitude pulsing stronger than my arthritic grip. "Phase 1 is ours," I murmured. Precisely at 10, Lillian arrived. A perfume cloud preceding stiletto clicks. She carried pastel macarons, a camera-ready smile, and the mahogany jewelry chest like an offering. "Morning, Mom," she chirped, loud enough for staff. Her bright tone couldn't hide the nerves twitching at the corners of her mouth. We settled in the private family lounge. A Magnolia aide poured coffee and disappeared, leaving us framed by floral wallpaper and the low hum of an old refrigerator. Lillian pushed the macarons across the table. "Thought these might brighten your day." I lifted the box instead, letting my fingertips linger on its familiar carved lilies. "Much brighter than sugar," I said. She watched as I lifted the lid. Velvet trays gleamed with pearls and brooches, exactly as I remembered. Beneath the second tray, 2 manila folders lay flat, like snakes in tall grass. I met Lillian's eyes. "You sorted my papers?" A quick blink. "Just keeping everything organized for your peace of mind." She sipped coffee, but her knuckles whitened around the cup. I slipped the folders into my lap beneath the tablecloth. "Thank you, darling. I'll review later." Then I leaned forward, voice gentle. "Tell me, how's married life treating my son? Long hours? Guilt flickered behind her lashes. He's busy. We're adjusting. She set the cup down and stood. I should run, Mom. Residency paperwork never sleeps. As she left, I noticed her gaze linger on the folders now tucked safely away. She hesitated, perhaps considering a snatch back, then forced a smile and swept out. The moment the lobby doors clicked shut, I hurried to Bertie's corner of the common room. She adjusted her rhinestone glasses. Let's see the goods. In my room, we spread the contents. The durable power of attorney, forged signature obvious against my neat cursive from past documents, and the quitclaim deed transferring my house to Isaiah and Lillian Carter, joint tenants with rights of survivorship. Witness lines were filled with 2 scrawls, names I'd never met, a notary stamp freshly inked, bled slightly. Bertie raised an eyebrow. Sloppy notary work. We can subpoena logbooks. My pulse steadied, strategy sharpened. Next step, elder law hotline, I said. Bertie handed me her flip phone. While residents played bridge down the hall, I dialed 1-866-55-AGING. A calm voice answered, took notes, and promised an investigator within 48 hours. By lunch, word spread that Henri's teaching crochet tonight. Marvin loaned me the office Chromebook again. This time I opened a new email, henrymalone.estateofprotonmail.com. I scanned and uploaded every forged page, plus Bertie's certified county copy, then drafted 3 messages. To Isaiah, subject, your mother's signature. Dear son, I've reviewed the documents you and Lillian filed. My handwriting never lies. We'll discuss this with a mediator. Love, Mom. To Lillian, subject, witness names. Kindly forward verified contact info for Angela Price and Daryl S., the witnesses on my deed. Adult Protective Services will need it. To Attorney Joan Fletcher, Elder Law Specialist, attachments enclosed, appointment request for Friday. I hit send and felt the air lighten. Somewhere deep in Magnolia, a grandfather clock chimed 2, each gong settling like a promise. Late afternoon, Isaiah called, breathless. Mom, Lillian says you're confused about paperwork. His voice quivered between concern and defensive fatigue. I spoke calmly. Confusion ends when truth begins, Isaiah. APS will clarify everything. Silence, then a shaky exhale. I didn't mean... We just wanted security. I held the phone steady. Security built on fraud collapses, son. Consider this your first aftershock. That evening, Bertie and I hosted Crochet Club. Between chain stitches, I felt eyes on me. Nurses, residents, perhaps even administrators sensing a storm. Good. Paper walls rattle before they fall. As lights dimmed for bed checks, an email pinged my new account. From Isaiah Carter. We need to talk before APS arrives. I'm coming tomorrow, alone. I closed the laptop, heart both heavy and hopeful. A meeting meant cracks, widening. Daylight would seep through. In my notebook, I added 2 fresh lines. Step 7, face-to-face with Isaiah. Offer path to restitution. Step 8, if he refuses, file criminal complaint Monday. The moon rose over Magnolia Pines, silvering the parking lot. Somewhere beyond, my hydrangeas might be wilting without my pruning, but roots run deep when planted in love, not paper. Isaiah would soon learn soil can tell truth better than any forged signature. And if you think a grown son won't crumble when confronted with the mother he underestimated, stay tuned. Some walls fall with a single knock. Others require the steady tap of conscience. Either way, dawn is coming. Isaiah arrived just after breakfast, cheeks hollow from nights on call. He carried no briefcase, no flowers, only a worn manila envelope and the weight of his own choices. We met in Magnolia's small courtyard where azaleas fought for sunlight between concrete benches. The air smelled faintly of over-chlorinated fountain water and last night's rain. He sat, envelope balanced on his knees. I offered coffee from the cafeteria thermos. He shook his head, then cleared his throat. Mom, we thought we were protecting your future. The hospital lectures nonstop about elder falls, dementia, risk management. His voice frayed. Lillian said if we waited, paperwork would be harder. I studied him. The same boy who once ran lemonade stands, now rationalizing grand-scale lemonade theft. You wrote me off before the first bruise, I answered quietly. That isn't protection. It's preemptive possession. He flinched, then opened the envelope. Inside lay a fresh power of attorney unsigned, a quitclaim deed back to my name, and 2 cashier's checks, one for the proceeds of a home equity loan Lillian had already pulled, the other for Magnolia fees paid in advance. The totals nearly mirrored my vanished savings. I stayed up all night undoing what we did, he said. These forms put everything back, if you agree. A notary's on the way. I accepted the documents but didn't reach for a pen. Undoing a theft isn't generosity, Isaiah, it's evidence. He swallowed. Adult Protective Services, are they still coming? I nodded. They'll audit every signature. If they see restitution and real remorse, they may recommend mediation over prosecution. That's on them, not me. He exhaled, shoulders sagging. I was drowning, Mom. Residency, loans, expectations. Lillian said consolidating assets was just smart family planning. He buried his face in his hands. I knew it felt wrong the moment Magnolia's door shut behind you. I let silence lengthen long enough for regret to steep. Then I spoke. Tell me the full scope. Accounts, policies, my jewelry. Tears slipped past his lashes as he itemized everything. My ring had been appraised for collateral but not yet pawned. My 401k was earmarked for early withdrawal next quarter. Even Birdie's hydrangeas were listed on a realtor's staging plan. Each revelation settled like stones in my pocket, heavy but measurable. When he finished, I closed the envelope and placed it beside me. Here's the path forward. You'll attend APS mediation. You'll testify how you forged witness signatures, misled a notary, diverted my mail. In return, I'll request probation and mandatory ethics counseling rather than jail. He opened his mouth, shame cut off protest. I continued. You'll also draft a notarized letter to Magnolia revoking the fraudulent POA and authorizing my discharge into my own home by Friday. His shoulders straightened. Physician instincts latching onto clear orders. Done, he whispered. The notary, a kind-eyed man named Mr. Douglas, found us 15 minutes later. Under his watchful pen, Isaiah signed the corrective deed and POA revocation. I signed only the lines that returned what was mine. The seal pressed hot wax onto redemption's first page. After the notary left, I placed my hand over Isaiah's. I love you, son. Love doesn't equal access. It equals accountability. He nodded, tears dripping onto the decree. Somewhere behind us, a therapy parrot squawked, "Good choice." Comic timing the universe often lends to serious moments. We both laughed, shaky but genuine. He stood to leave, promising to meet APS investigators at my side. Before he turned, he asked, "Mom, will you ever trust me again?" I thought of Birdie's wisdom. Trust is a house rebuilt one brick at a time. Trust begins when deeds match words, repeatedly. His gaze held mine, understanding the sentence carried no period, only an ellipsis earned through time. He slipped away down the corridor, passing Lillian at the entrance. She wore dark glasses and carried carnations, symbol of remembrance. She froze on seeing my envelope. Isaiah murmured something. Her shoulders wilted. They walked outside, distance between them louder than any accusation. That evening, Magnolia tires rolled beneath a moving truck bearing my name. Staff boxed my belongings while Bertie supervised with the authority of a forewoman. Clarice, the receptionist, hugged me, eyes watery. "Most residents leave feet first," she whispered. "You walked out head high." I paused by the nursing station, pressed Amber's hand. "You helped me with one brochure. Thank you," she smiled. "Go prune those hydrangeas." The truck pulled away under pink dusk. As Magnolia shrank in the rear-view mirror, I felt neither victor's glee nor widow's bitterness, only firm resolve, like earth after hard rain. Back home, my key slid into the lock with a satisfying click. Hydrangeas drooped but lived. I whispered, "We'll get you water." Inside, dust motes floated through slanted light, waiting for doors and windows to open wide. On the kitchen table lay Isaiah's new letter, his admissions to APS, his promise to transfer residency closer so he could repair fences weekly. I placed it beside Bertie's envelope in my ledger book. Tomorrow, APS mediation. Next week, estate documents redrafted with ironclad clauses. Seasons will turn, boundaries will hold, and whenever someone wonders whether an elder can reclaim her life from deceit, I'll invite them for tea under blooming hydrangeas and let truth answer for itself. Adult Protective Services showed up on a Wednesday morning that smelled of honeysuckle and fresh mulch. 2 agents stepped from a white sedan, Carla Monroe, compact and sharp-eyed, and Leon James, tall as a doorframe with a notebook already open. I met them on the porch Franklin built, the deed to that very porch now safely back in my name but not yet cleared by a judge. Carla introduced herself, then asked permission to see the canvas before we study the forgery. Her phrase felt respectful, so I invited them in. She moved through each room, noting tidy shelves, labeled pill containers, my calendar full of garden club meetings. Leon photographed grab bars Isaiah had installed years earlier, a detail that screamed capable elder, not mentally declining ward. In the den, Carla paused at Franklin's mahogany desk, now stacked with my crochet samples and Bertie's certified copy of the fraudulent deed. She skimmed the document, eyebrows rising when she reached the blank witness lines. "Missing witnesses," she murmured. "Amateurs." I smiled tightly. My daughter-in-law majored in sparkle, not legality. We settled at the dining table. Isaiah, summoned by text, arrived moments later. White coat swapped for jeans, apology written across his face in dark crescents of fatigue. He greeted the agents with the shaky politeness of a resident facing an attending physician. Leon gestured to the empty chair beside me. Isaiah sat, clasped hands trembling just enough to clink his wedding band against the tabletop. Carla began. "Mrs. Malone alleges financial exploitation, unlawful confinement, and forgery. We have copies of the quitclaim deed and power of attorney plus video from Magnolia Pines confirming she entered against her explicit objections." She turned to Isaiah. "Do you dispute any of this?" He cleared his throat. "No, ma'am." His voice cracked on the second syllable. We thought we were protecting our assets, but I knew forging her signature was wrong the second I watched the doors close behind her." Carla's pen scratched across her pad. "Why Magnolia? Why not in-home care?" Isaiah's shoulders slumped. "Lillian said my residency schedule would leave Mom isolated. She convinced me early placement would qualify for a tax deduction and lower insurance premiums." He shook his head. "I didn't check the law, just trusted." Leon tapped his notebook. "And the deed transfer?" Another exhale. "Equity loan. Student debt." His confession sagged under its own weight. "Lillian filed paperwork while I was on a 30-hour shift. I signed where she told me." Carla slid a fresh form forward. "Statement of cooperation. Sign if you intend to undo every transaction and testify. Isaiah picked up the pen. Ink bled courage onto the line. With formalities complete, Carla reviewed restitution. The escrow account he'd opened, the corrective quitclaim restoring my sole ownership, the revocation of the forged POA. She nodded. Your proactive steps may keep criminal charges at probation level, but the judge decides. She turned to me. Mrs. Malone, do you feel safe in your home? I glanced around. Sun slanted through lace curtains, hydrangeas nodding outside, Bertie's oxygen hiss drifting from the parlor where she waited as witness. Safer than Magnolia Pines, I answered, and safer with sunlight on every page. Carla smiled. That matters. She scheduled a probate court date for 2 weeks hence, handed me a card stamped Elder Financial Justice Unit, and promised follow-up visits. As they left, Leon murmured, Most victims never get their house back. You're ahead. I squeezed his hand. Ahead beats behind. Isaiah lingered on the porch steps. He stared at the lawn he'd once mowed for allowance, now freshly scalped by landscapers Lillian hired to impress realtors. I don't expect forgiveness today, he said, but could I start with hydrangea duty? They're thirsty. I studied him, grown man, penitent boy, both. The hose is in the shed, I said. He nodded, retrieved it, and knelt by the roots. Water arced over blue blossoms like a benediction. Watching him, I felt a stitch loosen in my chest. The first tiny space where trust might sprout again. Inside, Bertie poured sweet tea and slapped the table with delight. Clerks say forged witness lines carry a felony if notary colluded. Lillian better pack flats for community service. I chuckled. More relief than humor. Let's survive probate first. That evening, I opened my ledger and drew a green tick beside Isaiah. Restitution escrow. 5 blank lines waited beneath. Trust, like hydrangeas, grows by seasons, not seconds. Outside, dusk folded over the garden. Isaiah coiled the hose, glanced at me through fading light, and raised a tentative hand. I waved back. The porch light flicked on. A beacon, not an invitation, but enough to guide a son toward better evenings. And somewhere down the road, Magnolia Pines glowed sterile white in night shadows, holding other elders still captive to signatures not their own. My fight wasn't only mine now, it was testament. Paper chains tear, roots reclaim, dawn follows. 2 weeks slid by like note-filled pages in a hymnal, quiet on the surface, humming with unseen music. Isaiah returned to residency days, but drove over every evening, packing repentant acts into sweaty after-shift hours. He balanced my checkbook beside me at the dining table, canceled every automatic withdrawal Lillian had set up, and phoned Magnolia's billing office to refund the oversight fees they'd tacked on my account. I made him keep receipts. Each went into a labeled accordion folder. When a task was finished, I drew another green tick in my ledger. By the 5th one, the page looked less like a scoreboard and more like a new seedbed. Lillian, meanwhile, stayed silent, until a certified letter stamped Davenport and Wells. Attorneys at law arrived on a humid Monday. Inside, an offer of full civil restitution if I would respectfully withdraw criminal complaints to preserve professional reputations. I read it twice, then penned one sentence beneath their legal boilerplate. Truth does not negotiate with secrecy. I mailed the letter back. No signature. Bertie cackled when she heard. Nothing rattles a rascal like a refused bargain. She spent mornings coaching me on courtroom posture. Sit tall, speak plain, and never apologize for clarity, she said, oxygen hiss punctuating every syllable. Her confidence stitched new steel into my spine. The probate court hearing dawned storm, dark and sticky. Isaiah drove. Rain hammered the windshield so hard wipers cried in protest. We parked beside Bertie's paratransit van. She emerged in a sunflower yellow suit, declaring, "They'll remember the truth or the color. Either way works." We navigated marble steps slick with water and entered a wood-paneled chamber that smelled of old paper and older regret. Judge Evelyn Chen presided, silver bun, discerning eyes, reputation for zero tolerance on forged elder documents. Lillian sat at counsel table, pearl studs, no wedding band. Her lawyer shuffled exhibits while she stared at a fixed point on the floor. I felt a pang. Not sympathy, but recognition of a life cornered by its own shortcuts. Proceedings began. Ms. Fletcher, my attorney, presented the forged power of attorney, Bertie's certified deed copy, Magnolia admission papers showing I'd never requested placement. Isaiah testified next, voice trembling but clear, detailing night shifts, debt panic, and his complicity in signing what he hadn't read. Judge Chen asked one question. "Were you aware your mother remained competent in daily living?" Isaiah swallowed. "Yes, Your Honor, I ignored that fact." Silence that followed felt like a church before confession. Lillian's lawyer argued undue influence, that I'd subtly coerced restitution after discovery. Miss Fletcher countered by projecting video footage from Magnolia's hallway camera, me protesting at admission, staff assuring your children signed everything, and Lillian directing movers. The lawyer slumped. Judge Chen announced her ruling without recess. The forged power of attorney null and void. Deed transfer rescinded, all assets restored. She referred both Lillian and the notary to the district attorney for felony forgery review, Isaiah to pretrial diversion, and 250 hours of elder rights community service, hours he'd begged to complete anyway. Court adjourned to the bang of a gavel that sounded like a cracked bell finally ringing true. Outside, rain had stopped. Steam curled from courthouse gutters as if the city exhaled. Reporters thronged, microphones angled. I offered a single sentence, Bertie's coaching alive in my throat. Guard your elders' signatures the way you guard your own stories. Cameras flashed. I turned away, leaving sound bites to echo without me. On the ride home, Isaiah stared ahead, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I deserved harsher," he whispered. I laid a hand on his arm. "Justice aims for healing, not crushing. Community service can be medicine." He nodded, watery eyes fixed on the road. "I'll make the hours count, Mom." Back at the house, we found a bouquet of hydrangeas on the porch, deep blue, freshly cut. A note in Lillian's handwriting read, "I chose deception over dignity. I'm choosing accountability next." No signature beyond that, only a forwarding address to a counseling retreat in North Carolina. Isaiah read it, lips pressed thin. He placed the blooms in a mason jar, then carried them to Bertie's room at Magnolia later that night, his first hour of service. Unlogged but real. I settled into the porch swing as dusk gathered. The garden was soggy but radiant, raindrops glittering like forgiveness on every petal. I opened my ledger, drew the 6th green tick beside court restitution complete, and closed it for the evening. Somewhere in town, other ledgers waited for honest ink, other elders for their own day in Judge Chen's courtroom. My fight was winding down. Theirs might be just beginning. Across the yard, the porch light flicked on automatically. A beacon not just for Isaiah, but for anyone who still believed paper chains were unbreakable. Let them come see hydrangeas bloom larger after pruning and know. Recovery, like rain, can flood, cleanse, and nourish all at once. July's first dawn rose pale and breathless, the way a child enters a room after breaking something expensive. I woke to birds fussing in the magnolia, and the low boom of a distant thunderhead. Savannah's daily reminder that storms form even on blue sky mornings. Today marked 90 days since Judge Chen's ruling, and 86 since I'd moved freely through my own front door. 90 days is long enough for habits to sprout. I now counted court victories the way gardeners count blossoms, but I also knew hydrangeas bloom brightest one season before they begin to wilt. Vigilance is fertilizer. Isaiah arrived before 8, changed into work jeans, and loaded the truck with rakes, hedge clippers, and a stack of glossy pamphlets titled Protecting Parents, a Resident Physician's Guide to Elder Finances. They bore the hospital logo and his name as author. Hour 97 of his 250 community service hours was speaking to interns about power of attorney ethics. Hour 98 would be delivering those pamphlets to clinics all over Chatham County. He thumbed the steering wheel. "Mom, want to ride along? We can grab peach ice cream at the dairy after the last drop." I considered the ledger resting on the sideboard. 16 green ticks now, and the hydrangeas, satisfied after yesterday's rain. "All right," I said, sliding into the passenger seat. "But you're buying. Restoration isn't cheap." Our first stop was the downtown free clinic. Nurses in pastel scrubs greeted Isaiah with high fives. He set a box of pamphlets on the counter and spoke for 15 minutes about detecting forged signatures and the quiet coercions that never leave bruises. I stood in the doorway, invisible witness, watching a room full of 20-somethings realize middle age and manipulation arrive quicker than anatomy charts imply. Afterward, Isaiah checked another line on his service log, and we drove out to Sweetwater Dairy. Sun glazed the fields, cicadas broadcast their electric hum. Over waffle cones, we talked of smaller things, my upcoming garden club talk on heirloom roses, his new passion for financial ethics research. He paused, licking melted peach from his thumb. "Lillian filed for annulment last week," he said. "I tasted neither sweetness nor bitterness, only inevitability." "Good," I replied. "Both of you need soil that hasn't been salted." Back home mid-afternoon, I found a letter from Magnolia Pines waiting in the mailbox. Inside, an invitation to speak at their Resident Rights Awareness Day. I smiled at the irony, flowered stationery from the place that tried to prune me down to nothing. I penciled the date on my calendar. Justice stories grow stronger when transplanted. Evening painted the porch railings amber. Birdie rolled up in her electric scooter, rhinestone oxygen tank gleaming. She'd completed pulmonary rehab and insisted on seeing how my investment, she pointed at me, was appreciating. I poured sweet tea, and we watched Isaiah transplant caladiums along the walk. Birdie leaned over. "County Commission approved my proposal," she said. "Free notary verification clinics for seniors, first Saturday each month. You in?" I squeezed her arm. "Just tell me which table needs a hydrangea centerpiece." Thunder grumbled closer now, the horizon bruised purple. Isaiah finished mulching and joined us. "Storm rolling in. Need to cover the roses." Birdie winked. "A storm warning here just means brace and bloom, baby." Isaiah darted to the shed for tarps while I settled Birdie inside. Lightning cracked as rain sheeted across the garden. Through the kitchen window, I watched Isaiah secure plastic over Franklin's climbing roses. Water plastered his hair, mud streaked his jeans. He looked less like a doctor and more like the boy who once rescued a turtle from the road, determined to fix what he could touch. My chest tightened with a fierce mix of pride and sorrow for lost time. When the downpour eased, we gathered in the living room, damp shoes by the door, cocoa on the stove. Birdie dozed in an armchair. Isaiah unrolled a draft article. How a forged signature taught me to listen. He asked if I'd read it before submission. I adjusted my glasses and began. His words sketched our story without varnish. Fraud, confession, the sound of bingo chips as a door closed behind me. He ended with a line that made my throat sting. Redemption is not the erasure of harm. It's the daily choice to write new, honest pages in the ledger our parents began. I looked up. Isaiah watched. Unsure. I handed back the draft with one sentence starred. Let that be your opening, not your conclusion. Outside, storm water dripped from eaves like a slow metronome. The ledger on my sideboard waited, open to a fresh page. Time to draw tick number 17, Isaiah, advocacy in print. A green check sprouted, small but bright. Tomorrow held more pamphlets, more petitions, perhaps more storms. Yet roofs were sound, roots were deep, and not one document in this house bore another person's lie. For the first time in months, I allowed myself the luxury of planning a future measured not by repairs but by fresh blooms. Camellias next, I decided. They thrive after a hard pruning. 2 Saturdays later, the magnolia pine sunroom, once my reluctant holding pen, buzzed like a beehive. Tables lined with brochures on wills, powers of attorney, and notary scams circled the space. A banner read, "Guard your own signature," in looping hydrangea blue letters, courtesy of Bertie's granddaughter. Residents in wheelchairs rolled between stations. Volunteers in bright aprons stamped "Legal check complete" on their cards like a county fair passport. I stood at the front, clutching my index cards. Carla Monroe from APS had introduced me as proof that fighting back works. When the microphone reached my hands, I didn't feel the nervous flutter of that long-ago wedding toast. Instead, a steadiness filled me like roots in loam. "I'm Henrietta Malone," I began, "and I love my son to pieces, but I refuse to let him cut me up for spare parts." Laughter sparked. I shared the pantry recording of false concern, the forged deed, the night nurse Amber slipped me the hotline number. Heads nodded, a few fists shook in solidarity. I ended with a charge. Your name is the deed to your life. Sign carefully, store wisely, and never let love cancel caution. Applause rolled through the room. Bertie wheeled forward, eyes glassy. Take note, y'all. That's what blooming after pruning looks like. Carla handed out notary verification vouchers. Marvin captured footage for the local news. Later, as tables were dismantled, Amber pulled me aside. "We've already enrolled 9 residents in our new Know Your Docs class. Your story opens doors." I squeezed her hand. "We'll keep them open." Back home, Isaiah was waiting on the porch swing, ledger open on his lap. He'd driven straight from a Habitat for Humanity build, our 219 logged. Mud streaked his forearms, sunlight caught flecks of sawdust in his hair. He stood and delivered a shy salute. "Reporting for ledger duty." I flipped to the freshest page. Green tick number 18. Isaiah, community build. Only 31 hours left. "Mom," he said, voice tentative, "I've been reading Dad's letters. He finally finished counseling. Says he's sober 500 days from deception." I swallowed. Roy had written monthly since the verdict, updates on therapy, volunteer landscaping, guilt he was composting into humility. I'd answered only twice, short but sincere. "He wants permission to help at next Saturday's rose pruning," Isaiah continued. "No inside talk, just pruning." I remembered Bertie's phrase, "brace and bloom." "Tell him 8 a.m. sharp," I said. "Work gloves, no shortcuts." The following weekend dawned with spring crispness. Roy's pickup rumbled up the drive. He emerged in faded overalls, carrying bypass shears and a thermos of black coffee, the kind Franklin used to brew. We worked in parallel rows, clipping spent canes. Small talk about soil pH and Japanese beetles filled the spaces confession once occupied. An hour in, Roy paused. "Thank you for the chance to put hands to humility." I nodded without looking up. Roses don't argue with pruning shears, they just grow back stronger. It was neither forgiveness nor rejection, only the next honest sentence. Isaiah logged the encounter as part of his service. Elder Care Horticulture Workshop. 3 H'ers tick. 19 entered the ledger. June melted into July. Hydrangeas reached their bluest peak, proof that iron-rich soil turns wounds into color. On Isaiah's final service day, he hosted a webinar for 200 medical residents nationwide. I watched from the kitchen laptop while he spoke. Elder abuse is a clinical emergency you can't intubate, only intercept. Moderators flooded the chat with thank yous. Hour 250 flashed on his digital sheet. Tears blurred my screen. Tick 25, service complete, earned a star. That evening, Isaiah placed the ledger in my hands. "This belongs to you, but may I add one last line?" He opened to the front page and wrote below assets. Trust, growing, not guaranteed. Then he signed with deliberate neatness. Isaiah Franklin Carter, M.D. I closed the book, inhaled the garden's dusk perfume, and realized something subtle had shifted. I no longer needed the ledger as armor. It had become an archive, each tick a petal pressed between pages, fragile yet undeniable evidence of repair. At sunset, we sat on the porch. Roy drove away with a courteous wave. Bertie texted that the county approved funding for a permanent elder advocacy office. Cicadas tuned up. Isaiah turned to me, voice gentle. "Mom, what's next?" I gazed at the yard, roses trimmed, hydrangeas glowing, caladiums fanning red and white like quiet flags of truce. "Next," I said, "we plant camellias. They bloom in winter when color's most needed." He smiled, understanding the metaphor carried more than horticulture. Moonlight silvered the porch rail Franklin had once built. Paper chains were gone. New deeds lay notarized in a safe deposit box. My signature, my life, stood where it belonged. Storms would return, as storms do, but roots ran deeper now, fed by vigilance and seasoned by truth. I rose, fetched 2 mugs of chicory coffee, and toasted the night air. "To honest pages," I said. Isaiah clinked his cup. "And to gardens that outlive mistakes." Some stories close with grand finales. Ours closes with steady growth, one pruning, one bloom, one green tick at a time. And in the quiet between cicada songs, I could almost hear the ledger's cover settle, content to rest but ready, always ready to open if ever the soil of trust needed tending again.